What do you get when you strap a gasoline engine to a wooden bike with no brakes? The world's first motorcycle and the first flaming crotch rocket in history. Ladies and gentlemen, once upon a time, long before Harley riders started calling their bikes her, and long before your neighbor Gary started every story with "back in my day," there was a wooden death trap with an engine. And I'm not talking about Gary's lawnmower. No, I'm talking about the original troublemaker on two wheels, the one that made fire noise and possibly a few burnt butt cheeks. The 1885 Daimler Reitwagen. And before we roll on, smash that subscribe button like you're trying to get the engine on this thing started, which, by the way, required a literal blowtorch. So what do you get when you cross a grandfather clock, a wooden wagon, and a man who looked at steam engines and said, "Yeah, but what if it exploded under my seat?" You get Gottlieb Daimler, a man who believed the future wasn't in steam but in gasoline and sheer optimism. With his buddy Wilhelm Maybach, Daimler built what's now considered the world's first motorcycle. And then they gave it to Daimler's 17-year-old son, Paul. Because what better way to test your invention than giving it to a teenager with no license, no helmet, and apparently no fire extinguisher? I think Paul survived that test ride by pure accident. The saddle caught fire mid-ride, and I bet that was the day young Paul hit puberty twice. Now let's talk engineering. Because, oh boy, this wasn't just a bike. This was a wooden torture device with a gasoline engine. It had a 264 cubic centimeters, single-cylinder Otto-cycle engine, producing a massive half a horsepower at 600 revolutions per minute. That's the same amount of power you get from an angry squirrel or a broken toaster. The top speed? Around 7 miles per hour. The engine was mounted vertically under the seat. Yes, under the seat, next to a hot tube ignition system, which is exactly what it sounds like, a literal tube of fire. No surprise, Paul's butt got roasted. Maybe that's why Daimler never patented a seat cooler. The wheels? Wooden wagon wheels with iron bands. That's right, solid iron tires. No rubber, no shock absorbers, just pure medieval punishment. Handling? Non-existent. Steering was a flat bar, brakes, a single leather pad pressed against the rear wheel. That's not a brake, that's a suggestion. There was no real throttle either. You controlled the speed by adjusting belt tension, ignition timing, and, I don't know, prayer. Balance was so bad they added training wheels. Yes, the world's first motorcycle needed stabilizers. So basically, this was the first motorcycle, but it also looked like the first failed circus act. And let me tell you something. This machine was as user-friendly as tax paperwork. You had to crank the flywheel by hand, heat the ignition tube, climb aboard without tipping over, and then hope it didn't explode or set your pants on fire. But despite all that, the Reitwagen deserves one thing: respect. Because in a world of horses, steam engines, and men yelling, "It'll never work," Daimler dared to put a motor between two wheels and say, "Try not to die, kid." And you know what? He proved it could work. Thanks to this contraption, we eventually got cars, bikes, and traffic cops with radar guns. It was the first gasoline-powered rideable two-wheeler, a direct ancestor to your neighbor's overpriced Harley and that guy on YouTube doing wheelies in flip-flops. Now, if you're wondering where to see this beast, the original burned down. Shocking, I know, but replicas exist, and some museums even run them. So if you're ever in Stuttgart, Germany, go to the Mercedes-Benz Museum and see one in person. Just don't sit on it if you value your backside. And finally, the price. Not back in 1885, because in those days this was priceless or suicidal depending on your mood. But today, several proper replicas of the Reitwagen have sold at auctions for between $9,000 and $20,000. Or about 8,000 euros to 18,000 euros. That's more than a brand new Vespa and way less useful, unless your dream is to confuse pedestrians and barbecue your seat. Some inventions change the world, others just change the temperature of your seat. See you next ride, folks.